Hey, welcome to the Christ Revealed YouTube channel. I got a great interview coming up for you. Really great to be here with you. Enjoy this interview.
What I show people to do, a number of maneuvers in conversations that will help them in conversations, but the core enterprise is a technique of using questions to maneuver effectively in conversation. Now I call it the Columbo Tactic because of Lieutenant Columbo. Remember that guy? He's always scratching his head, smoking a cigar, and I don't know, something about this thing bothers me, that kind of thing, and then he asks the question. It's very simple to use and very, very effective, the way I lay it out for folks. So that's the second book, and this is
in that book, and with developing that skill that you're describing here. I'm kind of asking a leading question here, but
okay.
Do you find that because somebody, as you develop that skill, it actually self-empowers? Not even. I mean, there's obviously the issue of being able to be effective in communication, but the more that you become effective in being able to communicate, your own conviction can grow also.
Yeah, I think what happens more than in that situation, more than the conviction growing, is the courage to communicate. The conviction grows.
Yes.
Because there's two things that. Probably more, but two things I think of that create courage, and one is preparation. Okay, if you got a plan, then you can put on your game face and execute.
Right.
Even though you're like, oh, okay, we got a plan.
Right.
And then execute is action. You move.
Right.
You start moving, and that helps you. So if people who are nervous and sitting on the sidelines, sitting on the bench, are given a plan and encouraged to just move forward a little bit, they're going to do it, or more likely to do it. And so what I tell people regarding this material is I say, you don't have to swing for the fences. Use my baseball metaphor here. I say, you don't even have to get on base.
Yeah.
That is, you don't have to lead people to Christ, or don't worry about that yet. You don't have to be a great apologist. You don't have to be a great theologian. You don't have to even get on base. I just want you to get into the batter's box. And this game plan will help you to do that. Now, this book is a bestseller as it's turned out over the last 8 years since it's been out. And there's a study guide out and everything on it now, Tactics. But I also wrote a book that just came out earlier this year, 2017, in January. And the title of that book, which is going to sound familiar because I've been working into our conversation here this whole hour or so that we've been talking, is The Story of Reality. How the world began, how it ends, and everything important that happens in between.
Wow.
Okay. Now sounds like a lot. The word important is really important there to the title because it isn't world history. It's less than 200 pages. But what I do is I look 30,000 feet kind of view of Christianity, the big picture, so people don't get lost in the details. I mean to show how it all fits together, not only so Christians can understand it, but for tire kickers who are thinking about what's going on here. I can show the coherence and continuity of the Christian worldview from beginning to end in a way that makes sense of the world as we experience it. Back to that earlier comment to my daughter, it's the best explanation for the way things are.
Right.
And earlier when I was talking about some of the core concepts of Christianity, I actually walked through my outline from the book, because the outline can be given with 5 words.
Go ahead.
And those words are God, man, Jesus, cross, and resurrection. Okay, and here I mean the final resurrection, of course secured by the resurrection of Jesus, which I do speak about, but I'm talking about the end. So I got the beginning, I got the end, and I got everything important that happens in between. And you think about it, it's all the important things that happen in the order they took place.
Right.
So you have, which by the way makes it memorable. It's just 5. I just did it on my fingers.
Right.
My 9-year-old, when she was 6, she could do this. God, man, Jesus, cross, resurrection. Because our story starts with God, and then he makes the most valuable thing in creation, human beings, to be in friendship with him. But then man got himself in a heap of trouble that required that he get rescued. And so God becomes a man in Jesus to initiate the rescue operation. He accomplishes that by the way he lives his life and something he does on a cross, and what we believe about what he did on the cross will determine what happens to us in the final resurrection. So there's kind of the big picture. And I intended it to be kind of and please forgive me for the comparison, But I wanted it to be like a Mere Christianity for a new generation. Now, I'm a little uncomfortable saying that because C.S. Lewis is in a class entirely by himself, and there will never be another, okay? And that's also true of Mere Christianity. But a lot of people find that Mere Christianity is not as accessible for them now as it would have been to an earlier generation. It was written, I think, in 1951. And so my attempt is to write in a kind of accessible style of Lewis, covering a lot of the same ground that he did, and in an affable manner, you know, a genial way. It's like we're doing now.
Right.
We're just sitting down and talking, and I'm talking with the reader. I'm not talking at the reader. I'm not talking to myself with the reader listening in. I'm talking with the reader and engaging. I'm trying to anticipate objections to what I had just said and then answering them. And so my hope is that this will fill a niche not only for younger Christians who want to lay a foundation, or for older Christians to clarify the foundation, but this is a book that any Christian can give to a non-Christian friend without embarrassment, because I'm not condescending, I'm not patronizing, I'm not overly triumphal in this, you know, and I'm not using a bunch of Christian lingo. I'm just talking like a human being, much like I think we've been talking here in our conversation, in a way that's accessible to people, but still making the case that Christianity is the best explanation for the way things are. Okay, so those are the three big titles, and there's some spin-offs that are in the works for them. But I think if people are interested in learning about some of the things that I've said here, then those would be sources they could go to get some really good working knowledge that will help them engage their friends, their acquaintances, other family members.
So with this kind of integrated view of reality, or let's talk about, you know, saying there is a view of reality. Do you think that there's a fundamental or innate human need to have an integrated view of reality, a way to be able to have things kind of come together and say, okay, now I have a view of reality that I can embrace?
Human beings are truth seekers by nature, okay? And some atheists have made the observation that we look to make sense out of things, all right? And therefore, because we have this tendency, they are dismissive of intelligent design arguments. Oh, we're just telling ourselves story. We find patterns, right? Okay, well, just because, and so that's a way of dismissing what seems to be a pattern of intelligent design. But I think that objection defeats itself. Because maybe we're finding patterns, which strikes me as a design feature itself, okay? That's one thing. But secondly, we're finding patterns that are real patterns. I mean, they seem to think that they found a pattern in Darwinian evolution, and it's not enough for me to say to the Darwinists, oh, we're just pattern-finding creatures and just wave my hand so that evolution goes away. That's not the way to treat that kind of idea. And so I think that we are pattern-finding creatures because there are patterns to be found. And one of the patterns, the most meaningful pattern that we're looking for, is a pattern that makes sense of our own existence. What's it all about? That's a question that is at the heart of every human being, and they ask it at some time in their lives. Now, sometimes people are so distracted by pleasure, people are wealthy enough to distract themselves from the big thing. They can just kind of keep feeding their own senses and keep them distracted. But I think most ordinary people realize that there is meaning to be found, and we're not just wishing on a star when we're looking for it. C.S. Lewis has a famous argument called An Argument from Desire. And essentially it is, we feel thirsty because there are things that can slake our thirst. If there was nothing to satisfy thirst, there would be no thirst feeling. The same thing with hunger and sexual desire and a host of other things. But he says we also have a desire for something else. We have a desire for justice, for example, and justice is not done in this life, on this earth. Therefore, there must be a place where justice is done. There is meaning. We have, as one of the prophets put it, eternity in our hearts. It's built into us, gives us a hunger for these things. And all of these things suggest that there is a place, in principle at least, where those hungers can be satisfied. They are not satisfied in this world. they must be satisfied in another. It's a huge theme in Lewis's writings, and it's one I develop in the Story of Reality as well, this yearning that we have. So when Lewis says that the door that we've been knocking on all of our lives will finally open, he's referring to this existential yearning and hunger, desire that you just identified for meaning in our life. There is a door that we can go through that will answer all of those questions. But we don't have to wait to the end of life to know that there's a door to go through. We can be on a path towards that door now, and we have clues to that the author of the story has already given us. And those are the clues that we can discover without reading the story. You know, some things are obvious and other things the author has to tell us. And that's where we go to the Bible, the ancient Hebrew prophets, Jesus of Nazareth, and the people who Jesus taught himself, personally taught, to follow after him. And these are the places we can go for insight into these things. And I think when we read these things, and we give it a chance, we don't read it necessarily with a skeptical eye, because it's not charitable to pick up any author and just read him with a skeptical eye. Why don't we just let the guy speak for himself and see what resonates with you? And I think that what people will find is that when they read these accounts and what Jesus had to say and what the prophets had to say, man, something happens inside. It resonates with a deep intuition. It provides answer to this question about meaning that churns in all of us at one time or another.
That's it for this particular interview. Thanks for joining me. Really excited to take this ongoing journey with you as we keep bringing more content. If you haven't already, you really should subscribe to this channel. There's a lot of phenomenal content coming down the road into the future that you'll want to know about. Leave a comment down here. I think people would love to hear from you, and then you can hear from them too. If you liked it, go ahead and give a like. It only takes half a second, and share this with people that you care about. The world needs more light in it right now. So thanks for being with me. Hope to connect with you again soon.